Former Jedi Padawan Barriss Offee is set to return in the upcoming Star Wars Tales of the Empire, where it looks like she'll be joining the ranks of the Inquisitors. So before those new episodes come out, I wanted to go back and look at everything we know about Barriss Offee so far. This is her complete canon story. In Star Wars Adventures number 20, Tales from Wild Space, The Journey by George Mann, we see the earliest adventure of Barriss taking place before the Clone Wars begins. Her master, Luminara Unduli, sends Barriss to an ancient temple riddled with Indiana Jones-style traps to retrieve an ancient book. Luminara tells Barriss to trust in the Force. Barriss makes it through a variety of obstacles, including her own self-doubts, to find the book, which then crumbles in her hands. She's devastated, and she goes back to her master and tells her that she failed in her mission. But Luminara says that she did not fail, and to look at everything that she overcame to reach her goal. An interesting way to teach it, but a good lesson for a young Jedi learner to experience. The next time we see her, and in fact the first time that audiences ever saw her, was in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. She's present with her master, Luminara, in a meeting between various Jedi and Chancellor Palpatine. There, they discuss the growing rise of the Separatist movement across the Republic. She's later present as part of the Battle of Geonosis. The battle doesn't go well for the Jedi, resulting in many casualties until Yoda arrives with a brand new clone trooper army. The battle officially begins. The Clone War. The next time we see Barriss is in Queen's Hope by E.K. Johnston, the last of a trilogy of books that focuses on Padmé and her handmaidens. This takes place a few weeks after the start of the Clone Wars. The Jedi host a gathering of senators in the Jedi Temple Gardens to share information and answer questions about the fighting on the front lines, and to talk about what it's been like so far to work with the clone troopers. Padawan Offee was paired with Master Balaba during this event, since Barriss fought in the Battle of Geonosis, but has not rejoined the fighting since, and Master Balaba was not at Geonosis, but has since been in a lot of the fighting that has started in the early days of this chaotic war. Master Balaba praises the work that Barriss has done in the medical center to help those who were injured on Geonosis recover. While talking to Senator Amidala, there's a whole handmaiden switch going on. You know how they like to do that. Barriss confides that she was scared during Geonosis, and that afterwards she had trouble sleeping. When Senator Amidala asks if there's anything that a Jedi can do when they're being troubled Barriss says that finding her center while meditating has been difficult after everything she experienced, and while other Jedi find comfort and joy in helping teach younglings, she finds herself thinking how unfair it is that these younglings will soon be forced to face such brutal fighting. She remarks that it was similarly unfair to Senator Amidala and her handmaidens when they were forced to confront the hardships of the Trade Federation occupation at such an early age during Phantom Menace. It is clear from this brief interaction how much Barriss has emotionally and morally been scarred from Geonosis, and the only comfort she seems to be receiving from Jedi like Master Balaba is some time to work away from the fighting, and a reminder that duty will eventually call her to fight again. It feels like a cold comfort. And almost as if to drive the hypocriticalness of the Jedi of this time period in even farther, I see what you're up to, E.K. Johnston. I see it. We then immediately after this conversation go to Master Balaba leading Senator Amidala to Jedi Master Plo Koon, who's giving a talk about how individuality in the clone troopers of his wolf pack have led them to become more effective on the battlefield. And Master Yoda agrees that individuality should be fostered among the clones. Yes, let's foster individuality among the clones, but not amongst our Jedi. Yeah, not hypocritical at all. A Jedi's Duty from Stories of Jedi and Sith is a short story about Barriss from author Karen Strong, where, sensing darkness, Barriss fails once again to meditate. Looking at a small statue of a Mirialan deity in her room, she grounds herself to where she is. Barriss continues to feel unsafe in the Jedi Temple after the horrors that she witnessed after the Battle of Geonosis. Even her work in the medical center of the temple has begun to become a trigger for her, as sensing all the turmoil that the war brings to the wounded Jedi who come and go reminds her of her own unhealed trauma. Master Luminara calls Barriss to the Situation Room, where Mace Windu, via hologram, informs Luminara that she is needed to provide reinforcements to Generals Kenobi, Skywalker, and Mundi on Geonosis. Luminara says that Barriss will come with her, and Barriss is horrified and angry and scared and sad at the thought of returning to Geonosis. But she's slightly relieved when Luminara tasks her with analyzing a map of Geonosian tunnels to find a way into their new droid factory so that it can be destroyed, which can help to end the war. Barriss is glad that she's given not a warrior's task, but an intellectual one. While Barriss muses about her upcoming mission, she runs into Jedi Knight Tutso Mara, who not too many years prior taught her how to hold a lightsaber properly. He senses Barriss's discomfort at returning to Geonosis, and they discuss the Jedi's role in this war and their duty to combat the darkness spread by Count Dooku. Barriss does not share her thoughts that the Jedi Council is losing their way and possibly becoming tainted by the dark side themselves. She does, however, confide her difficulty with meditating, and Tutso brings her to the great tree in the courtyard. The natural, soothing connection the tree has to the Force helps block out the darkness that Barriss has been feeling for so long, and they finally are able to meditate together. The darkness recedes within Barriss, and she completes her task in preparation for this mission. She goes to the hangar to meet with Luminara, and in the hangar, she recalls how it used to be filled with transports, and now it houses fighters and gunships. A startling reminder of the change that the war has brought to the Jedi Order. But with hope that this battle can bring an end to the war, Barriss and her master Luminara head back to Geonosis once more. The Clone Wars series, Season 2, Episodes 6 through 8, Weapons Factory, Legacy of Terror, and Brain Invaders, is an arc that includes a couple episodes that are focused on Barriss. Barriss is introduced to Anakin Skywalker and his apprentice, Ahsoka Tano, to destroy the droid factory. The plan is for the two masters to lead the clones in a frontal assault on the factory as a distraction, while the Padawans sneak through Geonosian tunnels underneath the factory to plant bombs that will allow them to blow up the factory. Barriss and Ahsoka have to learn to trust each other quickly, with Barriss's memorization of the over 200 junctions of the tunnel leading them exactly where they need to be, and Ahsoka's quick thinking allowing them to continue the mission once the Geonosians steal the bombs that they needed to plant to blow up the factory. Commandeering a super tank, the Padawans blow up the factory from inside it, bringing the whole structure down on top of themselves. The Padawans survive, but are trapped inside the super tank and under tons of rubble, quickly running out of air. Both Barriss and her master on the outside are ready to write off the Padawans as dead, having died for a greater cause. Barriss is glad that the destruction of the droid factory will save many worlds from invasion and war, but Anakin and Ahsoka are not ready to give up, with Anakin calling the clones to start removing rubble, and Ahsoka jury-rigging a short message to let the Masters know where in the rubble to find them. The Padawans are saved, but I think it's very worthwhile to note how quickly Luminara writes off her Padawan as dead, and how that is the way that Barriss expects to be treated. They show the extreme end of Jedis cutting themselves off from attachment, and it's not a good thing. The Padawans would have died if not for Anakin's intervention, and while, of course, his intervention in this instance was good and justified, we see later on what his over-attachment and refusal to let go of those that he loves leads him to fall to the dark side. Balance is needed to stay away truly from the dark side, because Barriss, not being brought up in this balance, eventually falls herself as well. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. The Padawans are flown off to rest after their ordeal, while Master Luminara tracks down Poggle the Lesser. He's captured after the Jedi discovered the Geonosian Queen and her army of undead zombies controlled by brainworms. Yeah, it's a whole thing, just go with it. When Mace Windu calls from Dantooine with a request for medical supplies after a particularly badass battle, might I just say, Anakin volunteers Barriss and Ahsoka to pick up the supplies in a medical frigate, while the rest of the Jedi bring Poggle the Lesser to Coruscant to be interrogated for information that he has on the Separatists. On the frigate, Ahsoka and Barriss discuss how they're not sure how they would be Jedi during peacetime, and aren't certain of the difference between being keepers of the peace and warriors. Their discussion is interrupted by clone troopers who open fire on them. The Geonosian brainworms have made their way onto the frigate and begun taking over the clones, and eventually, Barriss as well. Under the influence of these parasites, Barriss hunts Ahsoka throughout the ship to try to kill her. Ahsoka manages to subdue the crew and the parasites by freezing the temperature on board. In a moment during their fight on the bridge of the ship, Barriss momentarily breaks through the parasite's control and begs Ahsoka to kill her. Ahsoka, of course, does not oblige, and instead kills the parasite controlling Barriss. But again, we see Barriss willing to sacrifice herself for the greater good very easily. The episode ends with Barriss and Ahsoka recovering in a medical bay. The next episode, we see Ahsoka and Barriss safely back at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. They are obviously still taking time to recover, as Ahsoka does not accompany her master on his mission to rescue Koth from General Grievous. Again, that's a whole thing that they're not there for, so we're not going to get into it. While at the Jedi Temple, in the comic Forces of Destiny, Ahsoka and Padmé, written by Beth Revis, Ahsoka and Barriss have a training duel together, which Ahsoka wins by throwing her lightsaber at Barriss, confusing and distracting her for a second, which allows Ahsoka to get the drop on her. After the duel, Barriss and Ahsoka have a discussion about which is more important, winning by any means, or sticking to strict forms and using them to prepare more broadly for different combat scenarios. It's a brief but illuminating discussion that shows the difference between Luminara and Anakin's styles of being a teacher. It also shows how well Ahsoka and Barriss can learn from each other. We then only get brief glimpses of Barriss over the next few years of in-universe time of the Clone Wars. In the intro to the episode Darkness of Umbara, she can very briefly be seen piloting a Jedi starfighter alongside Ahsoka as they help the Republic break through a Separatist blockade, and she's also present for the fake funeral of Obi-Wan Kenobi at the Jedi Temple in the episode Deception, which was all part of a secret plan, so he can go undercover and stop a plan by Count Dooku to assassinate the Chancellor, who's actually Darth Sidious. Again, it's a whole thing, not getting into it because Barriss wasn't that involved in it, but even though the funeral was fake, it does make me wonder, with the war lasting for so long, her being involved in medical duties and preferring to be on the temple when she can, it makes me wonder how many Jedi funerals Barriss has attended by this point in the Clone Wars. Other than these two blink and you'll miss them appearances, and a trading card mentioning that Barriss was with Aayla Secura on Felucia for a brief time, we don't know much about Barriss's time between her two Clone Wars arcs in canon, but way back before Revenge of the Sith even came out, in 2004, the now no longer canon book duology, Medstar 1 Battle Surgeons and Medstar 2 Jedi Healer, came out, and both featured Barriss on the cover, so I was interested in checking them out, even though they're not canon anymore. Being a proficient healer, these two short books see Barriss sent to a swamp-covered world of Drongar, where she works with a mobile Republic surgical team, basically the Star Wars equivalent of MASH, to heal wounded soldiers. The backwater world is a site of battle between Republic and Separatist forces because of a rare plant that grows on the world called Boda that can serve as a powerful healing substance, even more powerful than Bacta. While she is on the cover of these books, Barriss is certainly not the main character, with that falling to the head surgeon, Joss, who's a character who reminds me a lot of Hawkeye from the MASH series. In these books, however, as she is away from her master and confronting plots of Separatist agents, and violent people working to aid the Republic, Barriss does struggle with the dark side of the Force. She's tempted to use Boda as an enhancement to her Force abilities, which would allow her to become powerful enough to protect her new friends and end the fighting quicker. Reflecting on the teachings of her master allows her to overcome this temptation. While these stories are not canon anymore, the experience is briefly mentioned in a Spanish sourcebook, and I could easily see Barriss later regretting not taking action to save more lives, as the Republic was bombarded by Separatists as they left the world. This experience could have easily allowed her to resent Jedi teachings, as had she not fallen back on them, she could have saved many more lives. The last arc to feature Barriss is the Season 5, Episodes 17 through 20, from the Clone Wars, Sabotage, The Jedi Who Knew Too Much, To Catch a Jedi, and The Wrong Jedi. After a bomb goes off at the Jedi Temple, the Council calls Anakin and Ahsoka back to the Temple to investigate, since they were not present, and anyone could be a suspect, even a Jedi. The bombing sparks protests against the Clone Wars outside the Temple, and while they are investigating, Barriss can briefly be seen in the background, keeping an eye on their investigation. Ahsoka and Anakin apprehend the bomber, a civilian named Lita. At the funeral for the Jedi who died in the bombing, Ahsoka and Barriss talk about how Barriss was close to one of the Jedi who died, Tutso Mara, who we saw her interact with earlier in that short story. After the service, Barriss walks with Anakin, Ahsoka, and Admiral Tarkin as they discuss how Leeta has been moved into Republic military custody and out from Jedi custody. Ahsoka is upset by this and later talks to Barriss about how it's hard in matters like this for her to control her emotions. Barriss questions if it is right to ignore your emotions. Later, Ahsoka goes to speak to Leeta after Leeta says that she will only give information about the bombing to Ahsoka. She says that there was a Jedi who came up with the idea to bomb the temple to make a statement against the Jedi's involvement in the Clone Wars. Before Leeta can give a name, she is force-choked to death. Since she was the only Jedi nearby, Ahsoka is blamed for this murder. Ahsoka is further set up when a keycard is left outside her room, allowing her to escape and come across several wounded clones next to her lightsabers. As she continues to flee, she comes across troopers killed by fresh lightsaber slashes. Knowing the evidence against her is too great, Ahsoka flees to the lower levels of Coruscant to try to clear her name. There, she contacts Barriss, who says that she will try to help Ahsoka however she can. The next time Ahsoka contacts her, Barriss tells Ahsoka to investigate a munitions warehouse in level 1315, where Leeta has been seen in the past. Asajj Ventress helps Ahsoka reach the warehouse, but this proves to be another setup. After she and Ahsoka part ways, Ventress is attacked, with her lightsabers and mask being grabbed by the assailant. This person uses them to disguise herself as Ventress as she attacks Ahsoka in the warehouse. Their fight draws the attention of the authorities, who find Ahsoka next to crates of the nanodroids used in the temple bombing before they stun and capture her. Ahsoka is expelled from the Jedi Order, and while she is on trial before the Senate, Anakin goes to interrogate Ventress to prove Ahsoka's innocence. Ventress says the guilty person stole her lightsabers, and says the only person Ahsoka was in contact with while they were on the run was Barriss. Anakin confronts Barriss in her room while she centers herself in front of the Mirialan deity statue. When Anakin suddenly attacks Barriss, she has to defend herself with Ventress's red lightsabers. Anakin says that she should have gotten rid of them, but Barriss thinks that they suit her quite nicely. The two duel, and Barriss says that she has learned that trust is overrated, and that the only thing the Jedi Council believes in is violence. To prove her wrong, Anakin ignites a second lightsaber to continue the attack. Their duel takes them out into the courtyard, where Anakin defeats Barriss by grabbing her with the Force and slamming her into the Great Tree. Anakin brings Barriss into the trial against Ahsoka, where, in front of the Senate, Chancellor, many Jedi Council members, and cameras, presumably broadcasting to many people of the Republic, Barriss confesses to the bombing and killings, and says that she did it all to protest the Jedi, who she says have become the villains in this conflict, but they are now fighting for the dark side. She says the Republic falling is only a matter of time before she's taken away. And that is the last that we see of Barriss Offee until now, until very soon, where she will be showing up in Tales of the Empire once again. So I expect we'll be seeing her continue to grapple with a fall towards the dark side, especially as she is working now with, or being trained now by the Inquisitors. I'm very interested in seeing where this story goes. Yeah, until I see it, I don't have anything else to say right now. Let me know what you think of Barriss' story down in the comments below. Are you excited to see more of her? Let me know. And if you want to see a video like this, I did a similar one for Asajj Ventress before her appearance in the latest season of the Bad Batch. You can check that out right here, or you can check out other video of some sort right here. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good week.